So The Boys Season 5 has officially come and gone, and with that came the conclusion of The Boys series as a whole. There's been a lot of debate across the internet around this season on whether this series will conclude in a satisfying way. I've seen a lot of people compare the finale of this show to Game of Thrones and Stranger Things, and I believe those people are jumping the gun. It's been an interesting experience watching the fandom slowly turn on this show as each episode aired this season, especially the last three episodes. While the season did feel underwhelming, I believe it accomplished what it set out to do. When you look at shows like Stranger Things and Game of Thrones, the aspects that made those two shows' endings terrible was the fact that one of them completely abandoned every character arc that was established since the get go, and the other had its writers just get lazy. To compare these two train wrecks to the finale of The Boys just frankly means you weren't paying attention. The Boys has always been a satirical and outlandish concept from the beginning, and this season very much puts those aspects on display. But to say the show is bad completely because the final season didn't meet everyone's expectations is baffling to me. In order for me to explain in detail, I'll need to get into spoilers. So if you haven't finished The Boys Season 5, click off the video, go do that, and come back when you've done your homework. You've been warned. The biggest issues I had with this season was the underutilization of certain characters and a lack of urgency within the plot. This season starts off pretty strong as it follows the boys' split, with Huey, and Frenchie locked away in an American themed internment camp, while the rest try to find a way to get them out. This part of the season is solid and even creates a real sense of urgency when Homelander decides he's going to execute the three locked up in order to draw out the rest. The boys do succeed in escaping, but at the cost of A Train's life. A Train as a character is one of the most well rounded characters in this show, and with his death, while sad, it brings his character to a satisfying conclusion. He leads Homelander away while the boys escape and only gets caught when he dodges a pedestrian instead of running through her like he did to Robin in season 1. This is one of the best parallels in the show, and in my opinion, it highlights his growth as a character in one specific instance. This mirrors the first time we see him on screen, and instead of selfishly repeating his mistakes, he chooses to let himself get caught to spare the life of someone innocent. In the end, A-Trade dies, but he dies a hero, not surrounded by cheering fans, cameras, and with the knowledge that it will benefit his publicity, but alone in the woods for no one to see. I think that's pretty powerful, enough so that you feel it when he dies. The cherry on top for me is when he looks death in the face and laughs. The moment he realizes that Homelander is nothing in the end without his powers, he has nothing to be afraid of, so he laughs and goes out his way. While Homelander succeeds in his goal to kill A-Train, he isn't satisfied and actually feels sorry for himself because of this. Homelander has always been an internally weak character, but this moment in the show highlights it and puts it on full display for the rest of the season. He continues to spiral after this when he realizes that he inevitably can't shake his need for love and approval. This leads him to releasing Soldier Boy in a spur of a moment decision, and Sage even points this out and asks him if he thought the decision through, to which he lies and says his intention was to have him take the brunt of the virus. We as an audience know this isn't true, but it's another moment highlighting the real weakness of Homelander. Homelander continues to spiral from here, which inevitably leads him to the delusional conclusion that if he obtains the original formula for Compound V, he will become God. Homelander's descent into madness has been built up since the earliest points in the show, and to see it come about in this way defied my expectations in a positive way. Homelander fundamentally as a character has a deep need for love and approval to the point it drives him mad. In his mind, the only natural solution to this is to make the world love him as a deity. This plot point also earns bonus points with me because it brought about some of the funniest moments in this show. Not only is it funny that Homelander's delusion of godhood leads to some entertaining scenes in the show, it also brings about some critical moments for characters around him. This aspect is most effectively highlighted through Firecracker. Firecracker's internal struggle this season is on if she should abandon her religion for Homelander or abandon Homelander for her religion. This choice comes to a head when she's asked for help from a pastor from her childhood. After some internal debate, she decides to abandon him and the community that raised her. Not only that, but she tarnishes his name personally and accuses his community of being Starlighters to justify an attack from a Vought hero. The scene is intense and incredibly performed by Valerie Curry. So how does Homelander reward her for this? He fucking kills her. Why? Because after all that, she isn't truly devoted in his eyes, and to him, anyone who isn't a true believer needs to die. From this point on in the show, it slows down a bit until Homelander obtains the V1. From that point, I expected the show to go crazy with Homelander killing some of the boys there on the spot. But no, the next episode just cuts to him in the White House and the boys are fine. Okay? This was the main thing that they've been trying to stop from happening since the beginning of the season, and when they fail, I expected some serious consequences. Instead, we get no explanation as to why Homelander is in the White House or how everyone else there is reacting to that. He even kills the fucking president, and they just move on. Why? The show absolutely needed to fill in the gaps between episodes 6 and 7, but it drops the ball on this hard to the point to where most people started writing off the show then and there. While episode 7 did wrap up character arcs for MM and Starlight, it didn't do much other than that. It felt rushed to the point where Soldier Boy doesn't even get a proper ending. He gets put back into a coma for the third fucking time in the show, and that's it for the character. We literally do not see him again for the rest of the show and don't even get to see what happens to him before the credits roll. The only real consequence the boys have to face after their failure is Frenchie getting killed, which didn't have the emotional weight to it that the writers tried to convey. I think out of all the criticisms this season has gotten, episode 7's is the most justified. You mean to tell me the second to last episode in this series and these characters are still fucking around? From here, I expected the finale to be more of the same, but I was pleasantly surprised when it finally aired. The finale is fine and wraps up most aspects of the story it really needed to nail in its final moments. However, it is not perfect and missed some opportunities, in my opinion. For one, I think Butcher's turn to superhero genocide is unearned. He achieves his goal in killing Homelander, but decides to fully break bad when his dog dies and Ryan decides he wants nothing to do with him. It feels rushed and frankly not like Butcher at all to react in this way to something like that. I've seen a lot of commentary on the internet about Homelander's final moments too, and I've seen a lot of his fans turn on him specifically for this scene. As I stated earlier, if you didn't like that aspect of Homelander's final moments, then you weren't really paying attention. Homelander has always been this way, and instead of realizing that, fans opt to review bomb the show in its entirety. I don't think this ending for Homelander was bad in any way, but if you gave me the reins to the show, I would have tweaked it to where instead of Butcher killing Homelander, he is stopped by the boys in the final moments. For one, I think it would have been a lot more satisfying for Homelander to end up powerless and behind bars to rot as a human like the rest of us. To him, being mortal is worse than death, and would be exactly what he deserves. This would have given Butcher better motivation to truly break bad and go for superhero genocide in a fit of rage. That being said, I think Butcher's end is necessary and brings Huey's journey as a character to a close in an emotional and heartfelt way. Butcher's death plays out this way in the comics, and I am sincerely glad that Kripke kept it in the show. Huey, since the beginning, was always meant to stop Butcher when he goes too far, and when he crosses that final line, he has no choice but to kill him. There are many standout characters in this show, but I think the final season, Huey really solidified himself as my favorite character. The series ends with the remainder of the boys going their separate ways. Kimiko travels the world, MM adopts Ryan and remarries his wife, while Huey and Starlight open up a tech store. I love this aspect for Huey, because he was never truly meant to get caught up in the insanity that is the boys. He got dragged into it, and in his final moments of the show, he goes back to his simple beginnings, with a new perspective. He perfectly encapsulates the hero's journey in storytelling, and I think it's really effective. I also love the aspect that Starlight gets to be the hero she always wanted to be since the beginning. The last time we see her, she flies off to save someone in trouble. I think out of all the endings for these characters, these two are the best because they come full circle. The Boys as a series has its ups and downs, like most shows do, and I think some of its flaws really elevate other aspects of the show that are done well. If I had to give it a score, The Boys Season 5, I'd give it a 7 out of 10. It's not as bad as everyone is saying, but it's an acceptable ending for the series. But naming their baby Robin is fucking crazy. 2002, everything was totally new. We were globally huge, watching sales go through the roof. We wrote when we